Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Camila, and I will be your chairperson for today's session titled From Data to Strategy, Shaping Client-Centered Evaluation in Settlement Services. Thank you for joining us. As we begin, we respectfully acknowledge that the YMCA of the National Capital Region pay respect to the Anishinaabe Algonquin people who are the traditional guardians of this land. We acknowledge their long-standing relationship with this territory, which remains unceded. We pay respect to all Indigenous people in this region from all nations across Canada who call Ottawa home. We acknowledge the traditional knowledge keepers, both young and old, and we honor their courageous leaders, past, present, and future. It's our role as professionals to continue on learning and uphold key principles such as those outlined by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada and United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Allow me to introduce the IMPRESS team who will be presenting our program. Rinila Haridas, Program Manager. Noha Zeher, Research Officer. Andrew Dawson, Research Officer. To start us off, I will now turn it over to Rinila, our Program Manager. Rinila, the floor is yours, please.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Camilla. So now that you know a little bit about our team, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what we will be presenting on today. And this basically starts with how IMPRESS was born and kind of the background of why we think this project is so important. And then moving on to what inspired IMPRESS and what it was built upon. And then we actually talk about IMPRESS in practice, along with our final tools that are going to be built through national collaboration. And lastly, we look ahead to future and upcoming activities, and then finish off with a question and answer period, of course, to gather your perspectives and questions that you may have. Great, thank you. And of course, IMPRESS is under the umbrella of the YMCA, and that includes the YMCA of the National Capital Region, specifically in Ottawa. And why YMCA in general, of course, wants to have and contribute to equitable access in the community through services, supports, and different opportunities. And they do this through many different programs, and some of which are outlined below, as you can see, through facts outlined in the 2024 report. And specifically, you can see that over 19,000 newcomers were welcomed through the YMCA services. And IMPRESS aims to also improve service quality and outcomes for service provider organizations who are welcoming newcomers as well, all across Canada. And now that you know a little bit about our team and the project itself, I'd like to dive in about the overview of how IMPRESS was born by passing it off to Andrew.
Thank you, Rinila. So I'm going to talk a bit about the why of IMPRESS, the growing need that needs to be fulfilled. So in the settlement sector, we are increasingly expected to demonstrate that our services work. We are asked more and more to track outcomes and provide evidence of impact. But this is not really easy to do. Not all SPOs have expertise in measurement. Not all of them have the capacity for evaluation. Sometimes data is collected, sometimes it's not. Often it's collected haphazardly, often it's left unanalyzed because organizations don't know what to do with it. And when it comes to the staff, they often don't have time, they don't have the training, and they just don't have the structure and the guidance they need to improve their practices and track outcomes. And this is the reason for IMPRESS. We want to make evaluation and data collection easy. IMPRESS stands for Integrated Measurement for Performance Review and Enhanced Settlement Services. It's a program led by the YMCA of the National Capital Region, 3 years in length, funded by the IRCC. So our goal is to help SPOs evaluate their services, and we're building several tools to do this. We will provide free bilingual tools to simplify data collection and evaluation. This includes an online platform to help you collect data on service quality and on outcomes. We will enable SPOs to easily gather and analyze client feedback, and this will be done through automated dashboards and reports that help you understand your results as soon as data is collected. And now I'll pass it over to Noah to explain how we got started.
Thanks, Andrew. So, section 2. Okay. So why do we evaluate our services and why it is essential? Evaluation helps programs to determine where improvements are needed, shows whether the services achieve the desired results, and helps programs track down their impact and success. Next slide, please. Through sector consultations, we identified several gaps in evaluation capacity. Organizations reported limited guidance for conducting evaluations, no standardized means of collecting client feedback or measuring outcomes, and language barriers that made data collection difficult, especially with the newcomer community. This is where IMPRESS comes in and provides easy-to-use templates, a multilingual online platform, customizable surveys, and a national training program for 800 SPO staff. Our goal was to make evaluation accessible and user-friendly for all IRCC-funded SPOs. Our story actually began with the WESO project, Wired Evaluation Settlement Online, which paved the way for IMPRESS. WESO was also an IRCC-funded project that strengthened evaluation practices across the sector, helping SPOs improve hybrid and remote service delivery. Through WESO, over 200 organizations and 600 staff learned how to evaluate client needs, optimize service quality, and use data to drive improvement. IMPRESS builds on that success, expanding from hybrid evaluation to a full performance framework for the sector. Building on the WESO success, IMPRESS was designed with clear objectives. First, to strengthen newcomer services across Canada, enhance inclusion and evidence-based decision-making, equip service provider organizations with practical tools and training, and build a culture of transparency, shared learning, and accountability. These very objectives are translated into deliverables, into action. Next slide, please. These very objectives are translated into action through our deliverables, including multilingual feedback tools, an online evaluation platform, a performance measurement toolkit and training, equity-centered tools integrating GBA plus principles, and also national training for more than 800 SPO staff across Canada. All of these come for free for all our IRCC-funded programs. So now I'll hand it back to Ranella.
Great. Thank you so much, Noha. Now that you know a little bit about the background of IMPRESS and how it started, I'll talk a little bit about how it works in practice and how we collaborate to achieve, hopefully in the future soon, our final tools for this project as well. So, of course, you saw that there's a lot that goes into, creating IMPRESS, and that includes research, a lot of research, and everything is very evidence-based. And that basically, because of that process, what we are doing here is kind of providing a very simple framework to follow. And firstly, that includes data collection. And so for us, that's specifically collecting data from different interest holders, and that's specifically clients and staff, for example. And then after you analyze this data, so basically you look for different gaps that these interest holders talked about, as well as, positive aspects. And then you identify trends based on this data from interest holders. And then lastly, the most important part, actually allow for that decisive action to ensure lasting impact. And so that is the continuous improvement cycle. However, none of this is actually possible without the participatory approach. And next slide, please. And this really includes that data collection portion. So basically, through these interest holder perspectives, such as client and staff, as well as our consultants and service provider organizations, clients, and our advisory committee, which I'll talk about a little later, they all help us to ensure our project is actually meeting community priorities instead of us assuming what those priorities are. And this is really the key aspect of participatory approaches, as most of you may know. And it really gives, a voice to the population that we are serving and allows for that iterative feedback for our project. This not only allows for interest within our partners, but also data ownership for SPOs, which are service provider organizations, is what we're going to be calling them moving forward, as well as the clients and newcomers themselves. And all this really amalgamates to our final tools that are built with our national collaboration team. So all the interest holders that I was talking about before. And as I mentioned, there are, newcomer clients, there's SPOs, there are also consultants that we work with, but also we have our national engagement and outreach partner, AMSA. They help us reach rural populations as well as organizations supporting different equity groups as well. And so they help us with our outreach on that side. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we also have our advisory committee, and we have 28 national partners there. And as you can see in the next slide, there's quite a few. So I won't go through all of them, but they are spread out all over Canada through multiple provinces and territory as well. And we iteratively meet with them to gather their feedback and perspective on our project and our project materials as we build them as well. Next slide, please. And now giving you a little bit of an overview now that you know who is helping us build our tools. So as mentioned, of course, partner and interest holder engagement is very important to us. So we iteratively engage our community through multiple, through all our phases and all our different materials that we're drafting. And this includes the first phase, which has already been completed. So this is that literature review that we wrote up about the development and methodology of our project itself. And we also had focus groups with 104 staff and 30 clients to gather feedback on our questionnaires. And then in phase 2 that we have planned, and it's actually starting in December, we will be doing more focus groups with staff and clients to gather and finalize our questionnaires, as well as pilot the actual surveys with 180 clients as well. And all this comes to our final tools, as I mentioned, and that firstly includes the performance measurement toolkit. And this is essentially a downloadable and customizable toolkit where basically SPOs can fill out, certain different columns or rows, and then it actually automatically gets filtered into the remaining templates to allow for easy performance measurement of their services and outcomes. And so there will be a guidebook for that and some training. And then on the other side, there's also an online platform. And this platform houses the toolkit, but also includes a question bank with all of our questions from our questionnaires. And this essentially allows SPOs to choose, questions from this question bank, but also customize it with their own if they choose. Actually send a link to clients to fill out this survey, collect that data, and actually visualize it on our dashboard on the platform as well. And so there will be user guides and training for the platform as well. But now to dive into kind of those nitty-gritty details of each of these tools, I'll pass it along to Noha to talk about the toolkit.
Thanks, Ranella. So let's start with the performance measurement toolkit. Next slide, please. Performance measurement is not easy, but our goal is to simplify performance measurement through the toolkit. The toolkit serves as a step-by-step guide to help service provider organizations make their own logic model, their own performance measurement framework, and their very own continuous improvement plan through ready-made templates, which we're going to discuss in more details in the coming slides. So let's start off with some definitions. The logic model is this visual representation that shows the relationship between your program's resources, activities, outputs, and outcomes. The performance measurement framework defines your indicators, your data sources and benchmarks, and the targets that you aim to achieve, while the continuous improvement plan helps you track and refine progress over time. We'll get in more details into those 3 components that make up our main 3 tools in the toolkit. So in the next slide, we show you a prototype for the toolkit. This is a very early prototype for the toolkit, so it's still under development. It's not a final product. We are aiming to have two main components. The first component is the toolkit. The toolkit includes a quick start on how to use the templates and the different tools and templates that we have that you can download and use, like our logic model template, our performance measurement framework template, and our continuous improvement plan. The guidebook is a more detailed book for our training that has more information about performance measurement, how we built the toolkit, how to use the tools, and additional information and resources related to evaluation of programs. So let's start showing you the first template that we have today, the logic model template. This is a template for the logic models. It links inputs such as the resources and personnel that you put into your program with outputs, which is what services you provided, the count of service, the workshops that you actually delivered. And the outputs are linked to the outcomes, which measures the real desired impact of the project and whether the project was successful and made the changes that we want. While outputs, the client and service counts are essential, outcomes should be what guides the project design and determines whether a project was successful. Our aim is to move for performance measurement from output-based to be more outcome-oriented, looking at the final outcome and the success. When we talk about outcomes, we are really looking at 3 levels of change, as we see here in this picture, that happen over time: immediate outcomes, intermediate outcomes, and long-term or ultimate outcomes. First, we have the immediate outcomes. These are the short-term changes we expect to see in participants as a direct result of our activities. They usually happen within the first 6 months, after the service. For example, participants might show improved knowledge, stronger skills, or new connections as a result of taking part in the program. Next, we move to the intermediate outcomes or the medium-term outcomes. These are the medium change outcomes that often appear between 6 months and 3 years after the service. At this stage, we're looking for participants actually applying their new skills and knowledge, leading to changes in their behavior or practice. Finally, we reach the ultimate outcomes, the long-term big picture changes. Usually they're not measured and are out of scope because they are not a result of a certain program. They are a result of a collection of settlement programs that help in the successful integration of the newcomer client in Canada. And the last 2 components of our logic model are the assumptions and external factors. Assumptions are the conditions needed for the program to work as intended, like what you assume should be so that the program runs as you expected and the outcomes are achieved. And external factors are the conditions outside the program control that might influence the outcomes or influence the achievements of the program, such as economic conditions, labor market conditions, or policy. Moving on to our next template, the second tool we have is the Performance Measurement Framework template. The Performance Measurement Framework is usually prepared at the start of the program. This is the initial plan of how success looks like and how to measure your indicators in order to finally achieve the desired outcomes and the desired intended outcomes in your logic model. As you see, the template was filled with an example from employment-related services. The indicators and outcomes come from the IRCC Outcomes and Measurement Guide. The template will guide SPOs to the relevant outcomes and performance indicators to their specific settlement service set by the IRCC. We will provide SPOs with an inventory of measurable indicators that they can track down to make sure outcomes are achieved. After the outcome and indicator, there comes the data source column. This is where will you get the data to measure the indicators. Some indicators could be collected through the IMPRESS platform, and others could be collected from other sources. Next, the baseline column. It provides a reference point for comparison. This allows us to see if performance is improving over time. This could be a baseline that you measure at the beginning of the project or previous cohorts or comparable projects that you had. The SPOs will then fill their target, which outlines the desired level of achievement for each indicator. It helps set a clear performance goal. And then the column of collection frequency, how often are indicators measured? completion date, the period, the month, the quarter when the target is to be achieved, and the last column, responsible parties. Who's responsible for collecting the data? The next slide, after setting the initial plan, our performance measurement template, and how we're going to measure our success, we need to make sure that we really measured the success and what actual results are achieved. And this is what the continuous improvement plan template does for you. The template will help SPOs to fill in their actual results for indicators, which can come from the platform that Andrew will speak in a minute about, or from other sources. Compare them with targets and benchmarks that they have already set in the performance measurement framework, their initial plan, and decide what actions needs to be taken, who's going to be responsible, and the deadline to review the corrective actions. Now that we have reviewed the plan toolkit templates, I'll hand it over to Andrew, who's going to tell you more about the second component of our project, the platform.
All right. Thank you, Noah. So the second of the two main tools we're building is the survey platform. And whereas the performance measurement toolkit we just covered was focused more on making a plan for your programs and making a plan for tracking information, the survey platform is focused on helping you collect data that you may not have. So we aim for this to be a user-friendly digital tool that'll help you with every stage of the process. So collecting data, analyzing, using that data in various ways. And this will be a full service platform where you can make an account, go into the survey builder, customize your surveys. What will distinguish this from other survey builders that you might have used in the past is that this includes a question bank that we have made specifically designed for settlement services, and also specifically designed for different areas of settlement services. So you'll be able to insert your own questions as well, but a lot of the value comes from the fact that you have these questionnaires prepared that you know have been tested and you know are relevant to what IRCC is looking for. So just to give an overview of some of the features, we want to facilitate easy data collection using our pre-made surveys, which will also be multilingual. So clients can respond and read the questions in several different languages. We will also provide automated outcome reports, showing you the results as soon as you have data collected. So that's something that will help you interpret what all of this means, what you can do with the results, even if you don't necessarily have statistical experts on your team. As well, we will have GBA Plus integration throughout, meaning that everything here has been done through an equity focus lens. You will have options to look at different groups and make sure that every group is having their needs met. And of course, we want to make sure that every step of the way, data is secure and client privacy is protected. Diving in a little more into our question banks, this diagram here outlines the different sections of our questionnaire. So each of the sections on the far left will have a variety of questions for you to choose from. We chose what kind of questions to include in our survey based on the information that you likely not already have easily accessible. So it's quite probable that you are already tracking your spending, that you know your employees' hours that they're putting in, and it's quite likely through iCare or maybe another case management software that you're already going to be tracking your activities, the services you provide, the number of clients you serve, stuff like that. But what you might not have, at least not using standardized research methods, is a way of measuring client opinions about the quality of the services. So the actual customer experience, how well you're meeting their needs. You may also not have an existing way of measuring how easy it is to access and use your services, at least from the point of view of the client. So we've developed several measures of service quality up there in orange and service convenience in blue here, based on previous research to answer these questions. As well, while you might be tracking the activities, like you said, and the clients you serve, you may not have means of measuring the impact of your services, that is the outcomes. And that's the second component of our questionnaire that we intend to provide, and it's here at the bottom in green. The outcomes we have chosen were also selected for a very particular reason, because the IRCC provides guidelines for which outcomes they are looking for and the indicators that can be used to measure these outcomes. And the IRCC also runs an annual survey for newcomers called the Newcomer Outcome Survey, in which they have measures to assess all of these outcomes. So all of the outcome measures in our survey will be based on the measures used in the IRCC's Newcomer Outcome Survey. This means that not only will you be tracking the outcomes that IRCC is most concerned with, you'll be tracking them in the same way as IRCC. So this is really the core of the online platform. You'll be able to take these questions, customize your own survey, but you'll know that every step of the way is based on research that we've conducted and is built to fit what IRCC is looking for. There is just one additional feature of our service quality measures that I'd like to highlight. So for each question, you will have the option to measure both performance and importance. So here you can see that there are 2 rating scales. For each question, you can ask about the performance, that is, how well you did, how good the service was. And the other rating scale is how important that aspect of the service was to clients. So it's really that simple. There's 2 rating scales. But why might it be helpful to measure both performance and importance? Well, imagine that you discover that you are not performing well, or at least not as well as you'd like, on several different aspects of your service. So maybe feedback is positive in general, but clients might be telling you that the written materials aren't easy to understand and the equipment provided wasn't functioning well. So which of these things should you prioritize? Which is most important to address? Well, for this, you can look at your importance measure. So the equipment functioning may be something where you have problems. So it would probably be on the low performance side if you get low performance scores on that scale. But maybe clients are also rating it as low in importance. So this would fall in the low priority section here. And it means that maybe you do want to address it, but it might not be your first priority. The clarity of the written materials you're providing to clients, that might also be on the low performance side. You may be getting low performance scores. But maybe clients see it as very important. So if it's low performance and high importance, that's something where you really need to pay attention because your clients care and they're not having their needs met. And so that is why we've included this feature. If you measure both importance and performance, you can really see where you need to focus. And again, once you have collected your data, once you've asked your clients what you want to know, our platform will be able to tell you what some of the results look like before you even need to do any analysis yourself. So to demonstrate this, I have a prototype of the dashboard here. Again, this is not a final product. It's not what they will exactly look like. And I'm not working with real data either. But I want to give you an idea of what our tools will be able to do. So there's a number of different areas here that you can look in. The idea is that you can go as simple or as complex as you like. If you just want to take a quick look at, okay, did we do good in this area? Did we do good in this area? You can do that. If you want to dive in deeper, you can do that too. So let's take a look at client satisfaction for a moment. We have a variety of information in this dashboard. We can see the gender distribution, how many men, women, and other. We can see the age distribution, how many people fall into different age categories. And you can look a little closer. So if you hover over, you get a bit more information. But if you click here, it'll actually filter all the other results. So right now we're just looking at men, but also you could just look at women or just look at people 46 to 55. You can drill in closer if you like. We also have some measures of client satisfaction on the left here. So the statement, I'm happy I decided to use newcomer information services, in this case at the YMCA, you can switch that out. We see that a lot of people are saying strongly agree, which I would take to be a good sign. We can also see that people generally strongly agree or agree that they are satisfied with their decision to use the newcomer information services. And people seem to say that it's quite likely that they are going to recommend these services to friends and family. So again, we can keep things pretty simple, but if we want, we can take a closer look. We can make it more complex. So for example, I'm going to select this importance performance matrix. Here we'll be looking at that rating system that I was telling you about, where you can measure both performance, that is, how well you're doing, as well as the importance of that thing for clients. So if we go in, I have something here that shows a chart with the performance on one axis and the importance on another axis. Let's narrow it down a bit. Let's just look at accessibility. Let's see how accessible clients think our services are. So you can see for each of these different facets, easy to find information, service being available. You can see how well you did. You can see how important clients thought it was. You can also just look in these individual quadrants. So again, if something's high performance, high importance, fantastic. Keep up the good work. But if it's high importance, but actually on the lower side of importance, or performance, sorry, then that means you should be paying more attention, because if it's important to clients and you're not meeting expectations, that's a problem. So that's where you need to be focusing. What's useful is you can filter by this as well. So let's say I'm in accessibility. I want to know, are there any aspects of accessibility where we're falling short? I can just click needs improvement, and then it'll tell me all of the sections where clients thought it was very important, but we weren't meeting those expectations. So we can see here, it was easy to find information about the service and how to access it online. So if we're not doing so well there, we should probably work on making information easy to find. The service was available in my preferred format. If we're not meeting those expectations, maybe we should consider, maybe we have clients who need to go online or would prefer to go in person. We want to offer different options. Let's see, we can go even further if we want. So if we go into just an example service quality dimensions here, let's look at accessibility as well. We're still focused on how accessible our stuff is. We can get a breakdown, a detailed breakdown of each respondent's, or not each respondent's, but each question's distribution of responses. Just to see, okay, so for example, a lot of people are strongly agreeing, but we're also seeing, some disagreement as well. So we can look in a little more detail. You can see there's a lot of options here, ranging from very simple features to the more complex. And again, this is all fake data. It's just an example, but this is the sort of thing that you can use the dashboards for. It is very good for identifying potential areas where you need to pay more attention. And that is it for me. I will now pass it back to Ranilla.
Great, thank you, Andrew. So as you can see, there's a lot that goes into our platform and toolkit development, but also the payout is quite high. There's a lot of amazing features that we have in our platform as well as the toolkit. And so to get to these final tools, now I'll talk a little bit about the upcoming activities and maybe how you can help as well. So as mentioned in our phase 2 of our program overview, we have focus groups coming up with 30 SPO clients and 30 SPO staff, as well as surveys with 180 clients as well to pilot our questionnaire. So for these different activities, we value your perspective and we want your voices to be heard as well. And so we would absolutely love for your participation in giving us any contact information to help out with either focus group participation or, if you are an SPO that serves newcomers in terms of piloting our survey, that, you're any clients that you might recommend as well. And so we're very open to your participation, even just your feedback or any way that you would like to get involved as well. And so the way to kind of do that is in our next slide, you'll see that there's actually a Slido QR code that you can scan with your phone camera, and you can also go on slido.com and input those numbers on the website itself to answer this poll. But basically, the first 2 questions of our Slido are just your feedback on our presentation today, as well as our Impress tools in general. And then the question 3 is where you'll have a chance to input your contact information or your service provider organization's contact information to participate in, the focus groups, as well as the pilot surveys if you'd like, or just kind of get involved in whichever way you see fit. And so, yeah, we'll just take a couple minutes to basically give you guys the opportunity to fill that out. And of course, the contact information is fully optional. Definitely take a couple minutes and let us know if you have any trouble with the access of it as well. And then we'll move on to our question and answer next. So hold all your questions for now. Awesome. So a couple participants are still typing. We'll give a little bit of more time. Perfect. Just about 30 more seconds, and then we can bring back this QR code and kind of numbered code as well at the end for anyone to fill out their remaining questions as well. Great. Thank you for putting it in the chat. Awesome. So let's move on to the question and answer round now for your opportunity to engage with us. Amazing. So there is a question. Andrew, I'm wondering if you'd like to take this one?
Sure.
The language question.
Yes. So our question's available in a variety of languages. What CLB level are the questions? Is there any preparation or context for clients who may not have experience with rating scales? I like this question a lot because we have a good answer for it. So the questions will be available in multiple languages. We have English and French, of course, but we are planning to translate into 6 additional languages. And we can maybe put the current list in the chat if anyone's interested. So it will be available in those different languages, and participants should be able to respond in all those different languages, even if it's the same survey. We don't know the CLB level. We tried to, even for the English ones, the original English and French versions, we tried to keep it as simple as possible, but unfortunately we weren't able to get like an official rating. That said, we do have additional features to help participants for whom maybe the languages included don't fit any languages they speak, or they just aren't familiar with the questionnaire, stuff like that. So first off, we will have some pre-made instructions, some pre-made guides that would just be like a page you put in the beginning of your survey to explain how the questions work, just like, say, it's 1 to 5 scales, the basics of that. We also have low language versions of a lot of our key measures. So for service quality and for the outcomes that we're helping you measure, we have versions that are written in much simpler English with fewer questions and with images to accompany them, and often simplified response answers as well, sometimes with images as well. So that even if clients don't fully understand the language, they can still understand what we are trying to ask and communicate themselves.
Great, thank you, Andrew. And I think there's another question on are local immigration partnerships eligible? And I think Noha, maybe you can start with this one, and then I'll add on.
So yeah, of course, local immigration partnerships will be eligible because they are RCC funded, and they have the rural centers around them and everything. So they'll be eligible definitely to access the tools. And the tools, all the tools will be available online for download. So everyone can use them. The platform, though, that's the part where only IRCC funded programs will be using only, if that answers the question.
Thank you, Noha. I will take the next one, which is it available for download? And so we are going to be drafting the tools very soon, and it will be available for download in 2027, hopefully, and then the platform soon after. So it is coming up, although there's a little bit of a wait. But what actually is available for download is our previous WESO toolkit. And so Noha talked about this earlier. That's what Impress was expanded and built upon, basically. And that is still available for download, even though we aren't directly, active in that project. But that's downloadable. And if you need any help with that Excel as well, we can actually help you to navigate the toolkit itself if you reach out to us through the Impress email right in our on your screen. And so that WESO toolkit is available currently, and you could just go look up WESO YMCA, and it should come up. And then basically it's a downloadable kind of Google Drive Excel kind of sheet folder, and then you can work off that directly for your own service provider organization. And so the Impress tools will be coming up soon, though. And it is free for all IRCC funded organizations, answering that question of if there is a cost. And there's also a question, does this framework allow for qualitative data storytelling? And I'll let Andrew take this one.
Yeah. So when it comes to qualitative data, we will have a few options. Because a lot of the questions I showed you are they're quantitative, they're continuous. These are previously validated scales, but they are, giving numbers. However, at the end of the questionnaire, we do have a variety of open-ended questions available as well. So clients will be able to, write whatever they like, say whatever they like, and express that in an informal way without having to put it into a number or anything like that. So we have quite a few options for those open-ended questions. You should probably be able to make your own as well on the platform if there's other things you want to ask. But that would be the main feature at this point, yeah.
Yes, I completely agree. And just to answer kind of the next couple questions, we've already touched on this a little bit, but please feel free to put in another question if there's anything more specific you'd like answered. But the tools will hopefully be completed in 2027 in terms of the toolkit, and then the platform soon after. And in terms of the cost, it is free for IRCC funded organizations across Canada. Lastly, there's a question that says, do you consider survey fatigue when designing the questions and guidance for SPOs? We often hear from clients that they're tired of answering surveys from SPOs, and that's why they don't engage. I'll let maybe Andrew start with this, and then I'm sure Noha and I have lots to add as well.
Okay, yeah. So it's important to emphasize that the questionnaires that we are including in this platform, they're really a question bank. So it'll be up to you to choose what you want to include in your survey. So you will be able to decide based on your client's capabilities, how much time they have, their language level, and just your experience with the effort they're willing to put in. How much you want to try to stuff in the questionnaire versus keeping it simple, keeping it short, focusing on what's most important to you. You'll also be able to have different versions of the questionnaire. So if you have some clients that you need to ask different questions, you can just focus on whatever's most relevant to them. So you're not going to be forced to do one big questionnaire with everything in it. One other thing I would highlight is a feature we're working on is some pre-made very short questionnaires, just with 3 or 4 questions in them, specifically designed for immediately after an event or before an event. or before and after if you want to track change over time. Just to quickly get the impression of how the client experienced the event and what impact that had. So yes, you can customize it to be as long or as short as you want. You can base it on your client needs. And we also have some features that are just pre-made short questionnaires.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Andrew said. And just to piggyback on that as well, in terms of the consideration factor, that's why we have made it such a wide range of being able to customize it the way you see fit in terms of types of questions, what they're asking, and how many that you would like answered. And so our question bank is really just a reference, and it is tailored to your settlement sector, for example. But that's just giving an idea of certain examples or kind of other ideas that you can use if you would like. And we understand that each SPO is going to have different requirements depending on the size, depending on where you are, et cetera. And so, that's why that customization piece is so important to allow for that tailoring per SPO as well. And yeah, I think there's another question. If an organization has several IRCC programs, is it possible to create a questionnaire capturing the IRCC outcomes that span multiple programs and get individual program data? Noha, maybe you can start with this, but I think Andrew will have something to add after.
So ideally, every program will be able to collect individual program data for their specific program and for the specific outcomes that they achieve. It has several, it's a great question, capturing the IRCC outcomes. So ideally, I would say that each program will have their own data collection, because it makes more sense this way if you want to know what the outcomes that happened for your employment-related services or your newcomer information center or your NARS. So because they have different outcomes and so on. So ideally, every program will be able to customize the question bank for their particular needs and specific questions and launch it for the clients. If you want to launch several, like if the client has taken more than one service and you would like to launch two, for example, surveys at a time, you can definitely do that, but it can be confusing to the client. So I think just service by service would be the most straightforward way to do it. And also we'll make the questionnaire shorter, which will decrease the fatigue that there was a previous question about. So yeah, you'll be allowed. You can do program by program, individual programs, or if you would like to do it like for several programs at a time, you can do that as well.
Yeah, so we have question banks designed for different service areas. So we have employment question banks, community connection question banks, language assessment, language learning, needs assessment, information orientation. So you will be able to, say if you just want to assess an individual program, it's just in one area, say it's an employment program. You could make a survey, a questionnaire that just has those employment outcomes. And maybe you also want service quality. We have some items specialized for service quality in employment as well. But there really isn't anything stopping you from mixing and matching. So if you have some clients that have taken a wide variety of services, you can put all of the services, the questions for all of the services they've taken in the same questionnaire. And that is an option as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrew. I'm going to give it maybe a minute for any further questions to be put into the question and answer box. But otherwise, we can hand it off to Camilla at the end, and she can help us wrap up. But I'll give it a minute before that. Perfect. It seems as though there are no other questions, so I'll hand it off to Camilla to wrap up our presentation today. But thank you all for being here and for attending our presentation. Camilla, go ahead.
Thank you, Rinila. Thank you all for your questions and for your participation today. We hope this session has been valuable and informative. If you have further questions, please reach out to us at impress@ymcaottawa.ca. Thank you very much.